One of the core tasks that planners take is to guide where development occurs in a city and in which form. In many countries, including South Africa, one of the tools used to achieve this is a zoning scheme. This consists of a map which shows all of the affected properties, and each property is assigned a zone, such as residential, industrial, or open space. Attached to the map is a book of regulations which specifies what is permitted within each zone. For example, on a property zoned single residential, the regulations might limit which land uses can occur on the property. For example, house, home shop, creche, etc., as well as limitations on building height and how much of the property can be built upon. There are many reasons for zoning schemes. For example, to prevent incompatible land uses, such as a property zoned single residential being located next to a noisy airport. Another reason includes health and safety. For example, ensuring that heavy industry is located away from residential and commercial areas, which could be affected by industrial pollution. While zoning has many potential benefits, there are also problems. One of the biggest is that the contents of many zoning schemes have become dated. For example, many zoning schemes only allow one house on a single residential property and do not allow other income-producing land uses such as a home shop or creche. While one can apply for permission or a change of use, this process is often costly and long, with many impoverished households being unable to afford the cost of the process, or suffering due to the lost revenue from having to wait for many months for permission before they can have an income-generating land use. Many zoning schemes also do not make provision for African cultural practices. The inappropriate nature of regulations and lack of capacity of municipalities often mean that many of these regulations are not enforced or adhered to in low-income areas. When this occurs, other problems arise because important regulations are not enforced, such as requiring houses to be built with adequate space between them, which is important in the event of a fire to slow flames from spreading from house to house. The challenge for planners in southern countries such as South Africa is therefore to develop appropriate regulations for low-income areas. These regulations need to ensure that the poor are protected from hazards, such as floods and fires, and nuisances, such as loud noises, but are also in line with the everyday reality of the poor. For example, allowing them to use their properties for income-generating land uses such as house shops and hair salons. Some ideas about how this could be achieved include the following. Planners should talk to the people who are affected by the rules they are applying or drafting and develop a deep understanding of how they live their lives. This understanding is important for ensuring that regulations meet the needs of the people affected and do not result in good behaviors and activities being prohibited or made difficult to undertake. In particular, activities that relate to generating a livelihood which only have a moderate impact on surrounding properties, such as a house shop, second dwelling, or a service trade such as running a creche, should be permitted without having to make any application. Planners should not try to prescribe how a household should live or build their house, but should rather only regulate against negative actions and hazards. For example, many zoning schemes prevent people from building close to the boundaries of the property. Instead of these regulations, one could be made that allows for a diversity of responses. For example, instead of only requiring that a house be built 1.5 meters away from each of the property boundaries, regulations could instead state this, but also allow houses to be built up to the boundary of the property if they can demonstrate that the walls of the house near the boundary are adequately fireproof. Rules should also recognize that many people will live in situations where property ownership is unclear and that the rules need to accommodate these situations. The previous example mentions building a house away from the property boundary, which only works if there is a clear property boundary. This means that rules are needed for situations where property ownership is clear and demarcated, and also for unclear situations, as is the case in most informal settlements.